Hey guys, Chris here from Carolot Farm. We went on our first camping trip of the season to Claytor Lake State Park. After we set up, we had a lovely campfire that first night, and the next morning we set off in search of the New River Trail. The first stopping point was Hiwassee. There was this really neat old bridge that stretched across the New River. You know, whenever we go camping, we're always looking for water features, bridges, tunnels, overlooks. So this was a really exciting bridge, and I was so happy that we could start our day here. And from there, we drove a little farther down and we stopped at the historic Foster Falls entrance. And this is where they have their state park gift shop. So we checked that out, we unloaded our bikes, and then we headed off down the trail. We did stop to overlook the Foster Falls viewpoint, and then back on the bikes we got, and I want to say we biked about 2 miles down the trail to the historic Shot Tower State Park site. This is a historical park. The tower was built back in the early 1800s, and they manufactured shot for the nation for over 30 years. You could see the tower from down below on the trail level, and then you could also hike up top and see it from up above. So it was really neat to see this old historical building that is still primarily intact. They did fill in the shaft below though, so it's, you know, perfectly safe and closed off. But after we checked that out for a bit, we rode our bikes back up to the parking area, loaded them up, and then we drove a few more miles down the road to Austinville. This particular exit is in close proximity to a tunnel. So like I said, we love tunnels. So this particular tunnel had these yellow chains that dangled down just below that overhang, and they were to warn workers on top of the train of the approaching tunnel. So long ago, those would have been ropes hanging, but we thought that was pretty neat. You know, here just a few more looks at the tunnel. Again, this was an old train rail bed, so the tunnel was just barely large enough for the trains to go through with not a lot of room to spare. But, you know, we always enjoy hiking and checking these things out. After biking and hiking for a bit, we then set off in search for lunch, and we found Seven Dogs Brew Pub. We enjoyed a few beers. They had some pretty tasty pub food. And after that, we then made our way back to the campsite and had a lovely, relaxing evening. The next morning, however, we got up, we made breakfast, and then we enjoyed a little bit of sightseeing around Claytor Lake State Park. The cherry trees you can see were absolutely in bloom, and I had to stop and look at the bees. It's just so fun to watch them. So after I watched the bees for a bit, again, we got a few more pictures. It's a very, very pretty park. You know, a view of the water, and then we headed off to kind of do some more sightseeing. We made our way to Blacksburg, and we visited Rising Silo Brewery, which is a small little micro brew, they call it. It was actually larger than we were expecting though. And after we sort of spent a little time here, we then continued to drive around, and we had seen signs for Long Way Brewing. We arrived and we had no idea until we did that it's actually an old church that has been renovated into a brewery. So that was kind of cool. Again, you know, we had to try a few of their drinks, had a little flight. And by that point, it was approaching dinner time, so we grabbed some tasty Mexican. They had a food truck. And again, as we sat there longer and longer, we then realized that, lo and behold, they were going to have live music. So we stayed even longer. You know, we saw the sunset and just had a really lovely evening. We then went back to the park. We had one more night there, and then the next morning it was time to clean up. You know, we start with washing everything, putting everything away. In a camper, you have to be very strategic to make sure that everything is put away so that it doesn't move around in transit. So once we finished with that, we also had to make sure our little plants, however, were strapped in because we did travel with plants this time. We had seedlings that needed to be cared for, and so we brought them with us. We've traveled with a dog and a kitten and children and parents before, but this was the first time for plants. We are all packed up here at Claytor Lake. We're going to put the stairs up and go dump, and then we're going to hit the road. I think on the way home we're hoping to stop by Natural Bridge, so we'll see if that works out. But we've had a lot of fun here. We spent a lot of time on the New River Trail, so that was just a great way to spend a few days. Once we were all packed up and hit the road, we enjoyed seeing the redbuds along the side of Interstate 81, and then we arrived at Natural Bridge. As we made our way down to the ground floor of Natural Bridge, I think it was 134 stairs I heard we had to climb down. We were then down at the water level, and Natural Bridge itself was carved out by this little creek through the limestone. And so over time it just kind of washed away the rock, and that beautiful bridge or arch is what was left behind. It was pretty cool. As we continued down the trail, we found a cave that was pretty neat. You could kind of go inside and crouch under there. This was also carved out by running water quite some time ago. And after we spent some time in the cave, again, we continued down the trail, and then we came upon what they call a lost river. And this was very neat because this was a small stream of running water that was actually coming out of the rock. And then this little mountain stream then flows into the larger creek. And as we continued up the walk, we then came to a lace waterfall at the end, and it was lovely. It was just a nice, easy walk, a really well-groomed trail. It was real fun, and on the way back, we saw a little friend. Down lower. There he is. After watching the river otter for a bit, we continued on our way, and we saw several different flowers blooming along the trail. We also saw these white bleeding hearts. I've only seen them in a red-pink variety, so that was neat. As we continued further back, we did stop to listen to the birds. There's always so much to hear and see. And then up here you can see that little cave that we were kind of exploring earlier. So one more look there. It's just so neat to take this all in, and again, seeing the bridge from the backside, the fact that this is just naturally occurring and created by water is still just something that I find so impressive. It was a beautiful day. Couldn't have been nicer. So we have been camping now for 5 years, I believe, and we see a lot of Hunt Brothers pizzas as we travel around, and we always joke about, oh, we need to try it. And so we, lo and behold, bought one at the visitor center. We took it back to the truck, It wasn't bad. We were really hungry, and so it was a fine lunch, and we have finally had our Hunt Brothers pizza. This was the second time that we have gone to visit Natural Bridge. The first time was many years ago, before it was technically a state park. And so now that we're trying to visit all Virginia state parks, we wanted to circle back. But it's just as impressive. It's just so incredible to see what a little bit of water can do to rock over just such a long period of time. So really cool park. I highly recommend checking it out. So we did it. We saw 4 parks over 4 days. It was a fantastic first camping trip of the season. We stayed at Claytor Lake. We saw New River Trail. We saw Shot Tower, and then we stopped to see Natural Bridge on the way home. So again, just a wonderful, wonderful couple of days camping. But it's nice to be home now, and we look forward to our next trip. Hope you enjoyed, and check back soon. Bye, guys.